Hi, good afternoon to all our friends and supporters out there. Um, this broadcast is going live on Facebook, on Twitter, on the website, on YouTube as well. I'm encouraging anyone viewing this, if you could please share this with whatever social media platform that you use, will reach a lot more people. It's a very serious topic that we're discussing. I've been posting about it, and Ron East certainly has been posting about it as well. That there are Canadian BDS anti-Israel groups that are targeting Jewish summer camps all across Canada. Now, targeting for what? Well, many of these people who are involved in the targeting of these camps have been involved heavily in activities such as Al Quds Day, where they called for the death of all Zionists. And someone who's affiliated with these groups, Laith Marouf, that used to be in the news a lot because he was receiving funding from the Canadian government, the Liberal government, for some so-called anti-racism program, ended up that he's a vicious, vile anti-Semite. And lately, he's been going on social media, on the one hand, justifying the attacks that happened, the terrorist attack that happened in Sydney, Australia, where Jews were murdered at a beach when they were to celebrate Hanukkah. They were massacred by gunmen there. And he went further and he encouraged anti Israel Jews who joined these pro Hamas groups, encouraging them to show their value, their worth, according to him, and go and kill in the Jewish community in Israel, wherever there are supporters of Israel. That's what he said. And in fact, I posted just a few months ago about him the video where he said that very clearly. Now, we I've spoken before with Ron East about um, people from the Jewish community who we consider to be traitors or bootlickers. That they are monitoring the Jewish community and passing on information to these vicious anti-Israel groups. Ron, connect the dots a little bit with me and let's go through this. You have witnessed in your own community, in fact, at the Jewish Community Center, that Jews who join with these anti-Israel groups go to the Jewish Community Center, use the facilities. There's no consequence. They're like, welcome into the community. What's going on? What could you add, Ron?
Absolutely, Mayor. Thank you very much for having me on the show. This is a very serious topic indeed. Here in Winnipeg, we've seen on multiple occasions members of Independent Jewish Voices who, on the one hand, on Saturday would be walking around holding hands with anti Semites, anti Zionists, anti Israel agitators in our community. And then, the next morning they'll be heading into the Jewish Community Center for a swim and a schwitz and maybe a walk on the track, all while wearing their Free Palestine shirt, or something of that matter, and then proudly snapping their picture, at the entrance to the building, as if, showing off, look what we are able to do. And these are the people that scare me the most. It's the people from within our community that are able to infiltrate our community, that are able to go into our events, into our centers, into our synagogues, into our schools, gather information, and then meet with agitators from outside our community, those who want to do harm to our community, those who are calling for no Zionists in our community, those who are calling us baby killers and genociders and all the other terms, and then they share with them that information. And then that information somehow appears, a few weeks later, a few days later, on a poster or on a post or something similar, and that puts our community at risk. And a perfect example is what's happening right now with these overnight summer camps across the country, mostly in Ontario, but also here in Manitoba, I know that in the Maritimes, I know as far as in BC, they're targeting now these overnight Jewish camps because God forbid,
Mhm.
they stand up for Zionism and the love of Israel, Jewish identity. And God forbid that we instill in our children, some pride in who they are, where they come from, and where they belong. These are the same people, though, that have put out similar things. These are the people that have put out websites with the names of Canadians who have served in the IDF. I'm lucky to be one of those people in the list. And
Mhm.
these are the
Good.
same people also that have operated that website that was kind of putting the dots together for all the Jewish community centers and synagogues that had some kind of affiliation with anybody that was on the list of IDF soldiers. So this is nothing new. They're just simply escalating their propaganda and their influence. And both you and I have raised the warning about this quite a while ago. We said what starts
Mhm.
on the streets eventually infiltrates into our governments and into public life and then into our schools. And we're seeing it now affecting our children even when it comes to their, camps and overnight stay. I'm worried as the summer approaches about possible demonstrations outside the entrance to a variety of these camps in Ontario and around the country by these agitators trying to scare parents and children from attending and enjoying their summer like everybody else would.
Or potentially following camp buses,
Yeah, absolutely.
intimidating the Jewish children,
Absolutely.
photographing them.
Listen, we've seen
Yeah.
it here in Winnipeg during a Folklorama, which is an annual multicultural festival here in Winnipeg, which encourages all the variety of different communities that make up the fabric of Winnipeg communities to come out and present their best foot forward of their communities. You've got Argentina, Germany, you've got a variety of different other countries, and among these countries, there's also the Israeli pavilion. And this year, we saw, less than 50 yards from the entrance to the pavilion, the most awful agitators standing there screaming the most awful things. It's children who are
Mhm.
trying to either attend or leave the Folklorama event. It was scary. It was unsettling, and yet nothing was really done. Of course, you had the usual comments from your politicians who are outraged by the statements or by the words that were being used by these anti-Israel and I will call them anti-Semitic agitators. But nothing more has been done, to really stop this kind of agitation of our community, in particular of our young children who are being negatively influenced by this. And let's not even talk about Jewish students who are attending public schools where they
Mhm.
don't have any level of protection from this kind of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic um, day-to-day occurrences. I know that my kids attend a public school, and I hear almost on a daily basis of either swastikas being found drawn on walls in the bathrooms to anti-Semitic slurs being heard in the hallways.
Right.
It's just ongoing, and teachers are either incapable or unable or unwilling to handle it. Administration is the same, I think, unwilling, unable, or not knowing exactly what to do. And then this spills out of the schools into the community at large. And then what you see is what we're seeing now with these summer camps, which again is very alarming. And I know that CJI and Federation and some of the other organizations have put out the usual statements. But I think we need more statements at this point. And because when they're starting to target our children, I think we've crossed the red line that should never
Absolutely.
be crossed. And I think it's time for our community to say that Too many red lines have been already crossed, and this is the one red line that we just say no more. I'm wondering if our leadership will have the gumption, the guts to do so.
Well, I don't really expect it from the leadership. But what I do expect is that there are enough Jews in the community that have received the proper training without going into a lot of details. And when red lines are crossed, we're not the Jews of the Holocaust,
Absolutely
and
not.
we have a state of Israel and we have strong Jews, and it's just we know what's going to happen. We hope we don't get there exactly, but certainly there would be a response, and it would not come from CJA or the UJA, unfortunately. But that's how it is. You mentioned earlier the Independent Jewish Voices,
Yes.
and let me mention about the Independent Jewish Voices because a few years ago, when Laith Marouf was fully exposed that he was receiving funding from the Liberal government, that there were some governmental hearings about him, how it happened, and all that. And the Independent Jewish Voices went to bat for him and defended him against the government and thought he's great. This is the same Laith Marouf that is justifying the attacks that happened in Sydney, Australia, where Jews were murdered. Just getting ready for a Hanukkah celebration. It's unbelievable that these are going on right now. And the same Laith Marouf that is calling for attacks against the Jewish community, and it's calling for anti-Zionist Jews. It's weird we even use the term anti-Zionist Jews for Jews who are traitors, as there were during the Holocaust. There were traitors,
Yeah.
kapos, calling upon them to commit acts of violence against the Jewish community. So when we have, in the context of the camps, the summer camps for Jewish children being threatened and being targeted, and the Independent Jewish Voices, this is a very serious matter for the Jewish community, and
Listen, a lot of these organizations, left-leaning so-called Jewish organizations that are very pro-Palestinian, whether it's Independent Jewish Voices, whether it's the United Jewish People's Order, which is a very communist kind of an organization, but also very pro-Palestinian, whether it's Friends of Standing Together, whichever organization you want to call it, even J Street to some extent, and some of the other ones, all they are is just a get out of jail card for
right.
anti-Semites, for anti-Zionists, and anti-Israel agitators, and influencers who use them as a example of Jewish organizations that support their stance when it comes to Israel or to Zionism or to the connection between Judaism and Israel. And these organizations give them legitimacy. And the problem is that we as the Jewish community assume that the rest of the Canadian society understands the milieu and the complexities of the Jewish community. And we think that they understand when they see Independent Jewish Voices, that they're able to parcel that and go, oh, that's an extreme, radical organization.
Right.
We shouldn't really pay attention to them. Or when they see United Jewish People's Order, that they should somehow assume that's a communist organization and shouldn't be paid attention to. Or, hey, even better, Friends of Standing Together. That sounds so nice, so peaceful, right? Again, and we as Jews, somehow expect that they would know the difference. And then we get mad when mainstream media or other organizations somehow quote or use these organizations, in their statements, and not recognizing that we've done a poor job as a Jewish community. And again, I'll talk about the leadership of the Jewish community in educating, everybody about these organizations and what they stand for. And if I was somebody who was not Jewish and I saw an article that was quoting an independent Jewish Voices organization, I would assume that it's a legitimate organization that has quite a large following and
Hmm.
speaks for a large portion of the Jewish community. I would have no knowledge that they
Right.
speak for, maybe a handful of people and within of the community, if that at all. But yet their propaganda and their ability to get themselves in there. And, there's that old saying, he who screams the loudest gets heard the most. And that's what they do. They scream the loudest and they get heard the most. And don't forget that mainstream media is so concerned about trying to be even-handed. And when you talk about anti-Semitism, you got to somehow bring in Islamophobia, because God forbid you don't mention the one without the other.
Right.
And that in order to
Correct.
balance it off, they throw in an independent Jewish Voices, or they throw in, a friends of this or that or the other, to try and kind of give the impression out there that there's some
Right.
kind of a real discussion within the Jewish community about, the state of Zionism, or the belonging to Israel, or, the state of anti-Semitism, which is completely false. But yet they've taken on the narrative, and it's their narrative. It's not ours. We're playing catch up, and we're losing every time that we play catch up, because we're not there, ahead of it. We're not able to see the steps like in a chess game. This is a chess game. You need to be able to see, what steps the player is going to take, three
Yep.
steps ahead,
100%.
so that you know how to better prepare yourself for your own attack. And we don't do that. We wait until something happens, and then we're very reactionary. Same with this thing with the camps. It's not something that, yesterday somebody thought about it as they were sitting at home, over Valentine's dinner. This is something that has been in the workings for a long time.
Yep.
And if we had the right intelligence work, if we had the right people at the right places doing the right kind of gathering of information, we would have known about this weeks ago, and we would have
Hmm.
been able to come out ahead of it way before, it came as it did now. And now we're playing, very reactionary kind of catch-up game, and depending on the Jewish security network to keep up safe. And I'm still not quite sure what they do or
Right.
how they keep us safe. I mean, I'm hoping one day somebody will be able to really lay that out for me. But I've not seen any difference since this Jewish security network has been established in Toronto, and neither here in Winnipeg, since they've hired the director of security.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not sure what they do other outside of being liaisons to the police forces. I
Yeah.
don't think they
Well,
have very much that they can do.
listen, we make our podcasts in short segments, so we're going to take it up on another episode.
For sure.
There's a lot to discuss, but we covered a lot right now, and we just mentioned something quickly that I was in Israel last December for Hanukkah, and when you fly to Israel now, you have to apply for a visa to get in.
Yes.
Everybody, and on the visa, and I was very very proud of this. That on the visa application, they asked a number of questions, and one of the questions is a couple of the questions is. Have you ever been involved in anti-Semitic activities or anti-Israel activities? And you got to sign off on that.
Yeah.
And we need something like that in the Jewish community. If these
100%.
anti-Semites and modern day capos are able to waltz into Jewish community centers and use the facilities and make like they're part of the community. I mean, there's a red line cross
We,
membership
we,
for
we would
synagogues
never
as well.
allow we would never allow somebody, with the Nazi symbols to walk into our buildings.
Exactly.
We would never allow somebody who's not Jewish to walk in the same way these guys do. And just
Yeah.
because you're Jewish, that shouldn't give you a free pass. And that's something that we've been, demanding here in Winnipeg. Some
Yeah.
accountability here, show that, that you're really standing up, and not just against those who are from outside of community, but in particular to those who are being, threatening our community from within.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ron. We'll take it up another
Thank you,
time.
Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.